Hello everyone, thank you for having me, Asif, and thank you to Biospiel for letting me be on this webinar. It's great to be invited. And so I'm Imogen Aires. I'll be talking about how to get into med school in the UK. And the reason why I feel I'm qualified to do this, even though I haven't actually got into medical school yet, I'm a college student doing A-levels, biology, chemistry, maths. But the reason why I feel I'm qualified to do this is because I actually have a podcast. So I run the Medisynergy podcast at the moment, and I've just started that. It's where I interview medical students and junior doctors on how to get into med school, how to stay motivated, and also learn a little bit more about the medical profession and help you decide whether a career in medicine is for you. So through this, I've interviewed quite a few medical students, and so I have gained knowledge from them on how to get into medical school. So if you haven't already, here is a QR code to my podcast, and please do scan the QR code and go and follow the podcast either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Here are some pictures of me at open days, and this is another vital part of the process to get into med school, because you need to know what kind of university you want to go to, what kind of course structure you like, and looking around med schools is a really, really good way to do that. So if you haven't already, scan the QR code and that will take you straight to the podcast. I'll just leave that up for a few seconds to let you scan it and follow. Right, okay, so that's great. The slide will come up at the end if you didn't get a chance to scan it. So as I said, I've interviewed quite a few people, I think about 18 episodes now, 20 recordings. So here are some of my guests. And as you can see, they're from all over the place. So we've got Manchester, London, Exeter, and they're all a very variety of students from different ages, different backgrounds, and different places as well. So that's really, really great. And all these people have helped me find out how to get into med school so I can help people like you. So the first thing in the process into how to apply to med school, firstly, you need to think, is medicine the right thing for me? This is a really important question. We talk about it a lot on the podcast because medicine is a very long career and a very long degree. So you need to know you're getting yourself into the right sort of thing for you before you even start thinking about applying. So some of the questions you can ask yourself is, do I have the right work ethic? All of these questions here, they go really well, but you can't just have one. So say you're a really good communicator, but you absolutely hate sciences and you're not very hardworking, then medicine probably isn't for you. And the same goes for if you love sciences, but you hate communicating, medicine's just not going to work out. So you need to make sure you're asking yourselves these questions to realize, is medicine the right thing for me, or do I need to work a bit on this? And looking at the attributes that the GMC and then NHS, things that they mention are good attributes for a doctor, think, do I have those? Could I work on those? Am I willing to work on those? And then with that, you can see whether medicine is the right thing for you or not. So once you've thought, okay, medicine is the right thing for me, I think this could work out for me, you've got to think, so what kind of university do I want to go to? There are absolutely hundreds in the UK. I didn't know that until quite recently, but there are hundreds and hundreds of universities in the UK, but there are only around 35 medicine universities. So you've got to narrow those down a little bit because you only have 4 spaces on your UCAT form. You've got to narrow it down. So here are some factors you can think about. So campus or city. So a lot of the London universities are very city-based, where it's kind of spread out around the city and it's not all in one place. Whereas campus universities like Exeter, a lot of their buildings are all on one site, so you don't have to move around as much, and they're usually more green, and some people prefer that, or some people prefer moving around quite a lot. And then obviously all of the other ones, familiarity. So if you know the place really well, you might think, yeah, that's close to home, I like that one, I'll stick with that. But you also might think, actually, I want to go somewhere I've never been before. So these are all things really important to consider when thinking about which med school you want to go to. And so another great way to find out what kind of university you go to once you've narrowed down a few and looked at different course structures is go to some open days. Here are some pictures again of me at some open days. So there's Oxford here, Bristol, Cardiff, Bristol again here. So a lot of different ones, and it's kind of looking around the city. Do you think the city would go well with your kind of living? Do you like the kind of location? And then obviously lecture halls, looking at the actual university itself. Do you think the kind of course structure would go well? Talking to students as well is another great way to find out whether the university would suit you. For example, speaking to people at Cardiff, I thought they were absolutely so friendly. They clearly really enjoyed their time at the university. So that really appealed to me. Whereas Oxford, the students weren't as enthusiastic. So that didn't necessarily entice me to go to Oxford. And so, as I mentioned before, a great way to figure out what university...
Sorry. Imogen, just sorry for interrupting. What are your views on universities in London? London is a big city. What are your views about it?
Universities. Is that okay now?
No, I have a question for you. What about the universities in London? London is a big city. What do you think about them?
London is a big city?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think for some people it works really well. I think if you're used to living near London or bigger cities like Manchester, it would really, really work for you. Or if you've grown up in a really small area and kind of want to branch out, it's really, really good. However, it is very busy and obviously living costs much higher than other cities. So you've got to take that into account. But the transport is probably better than other smaller cities. So you've got to kind of think what works for you. I think for me personally, I'd rather a more campus style university and a kind of smaller city where it's less busy, I think, because that's where I've grown up in the second half of my life. But I think for some people, it really, really works. And a lot of people on my podcast have lived in London before. So that's kind of where their community is. So they really like it there.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
And so on to learning styles. So I did mention this before. It's a great way to narrow down what university you could go to. So let's start with traditional lectures over here on the far right. Traditional lectures are much more kind of in older universities or more traditional universities like Oxford, Cambridge, and that's very split up into 3 pre-clinical years where it's just lectures, and then 3 clinical years where it's very clinical but also has integrated lectures with it as well. So it's mainly just sat down absorbing all this information in lectures, and then you go away and do your own independent study with that. Then you have these 2 other ones which are a bit more interactive, a bit more teamworky. So problem-based and case-based. I would say from what I've seen, they're pretty much the same thing. But if a university has one, they don't want to be identified with the other. So just be wary when you're doing your research. So problem-based learning, I've learned more about that, so I'll speak more about that, but they're pretty much the same thing. So problem-based learning, places like Barts, Manchester, Exeter all use this. And so at the start of a 3-week kind of rotation, you meet with your academic tutor and you are given a case, you're given a problem, and you have to sort out that problem, kind of think, what's the physiology around this patient? What's the anatomy around this patient? What's the social effects? Why are they taking the medication? What state of living are they in? All of these questions you can ask about their prescriptions, their lifestyle choices, and then you go away, ask yourselves questions, kind of learn about the anatomy, about the physiology, answer these questions that you've asked yourself in this group. And then you come back after the 3 weeks and you kind of have all these, present the case again, but with all the questions answered, and you kind of solve the problem. And I think that's really good if you like a more interactive, more team-based learning. So once you've kind of had an idea about what university you want to go to, for right, medicine's definitely the right thing for me, you've got 2 tests to choose from. So most universities use the UCAT test, and it used to be called UCAT for any older medical students, but UCAT test. There are 5 sections. The first 4 are usually the 4 that are ranked most, and so you get different points on the different sections, and then all the points added up to a whole UCAT score. And if you're in a certain decile, so in a certain 10%, then you might get given an offer. So if you're, say, in the top 20 or 30% of people who did the UCAT test, then you'd be classed as the best and might be given an offer or an interview. So you've got to really work hard on this. And some people say it's not necessarily something you can revise for, but there are a lot of practice papers and resources out there, which we'll come to later. And that's most universities in the UK. And this is the mean UCAT score each year. It's quite hard to find this data, so don't quote me on it. But as you can see, it fluctuates quite a lot. So you do want to be getting high 2000s on those points there. And then the other test, which is only in, I think, 7 universities, 7 med schools, is the BMAT test. And the BMAT test is you can revise for it because section 2, scientific knowledge, is all GCSE level maths, physics, chemistry, and biology. So you can revise that, you can brush up on that for that. And a lot of people say the essay is something you can practice, but it's usually quite an abstract essay. So just be careful of that and try and think outside the box to show that you're different from other applicants. And that BMAT test is universities like Oxford, Cambridge, Brighton and Sussex. I want to say Leicester as well. And the UCAT and BMAT tests do actually cost money. A lot of people don't realise this. The UCAT's about £70. The BMAT test is about £150. The UCAT test you do online at home. You don't do it in a test centre. And the BMAT is on paper at a test centre. So do research where your closest one is. And so once you've done all these exams, and obviously you're doing your A-levels throughout, and you've thought, what kind of university do I want to go to? You've got to actually apply. So you apply on a UCAS form, and you're only given 4 medicine options because they kind of want to give you a 5th kind of plan B if medicine doesn't work out. That could be biomedical sciences or some other kind of science thing people usually go for. So on your application, you can put obviously your predicted grades, your UCAT score, and then you also have a personal statement. And so here's just a little rough kind of structure I've put up on the slide of how you could write things in your personal statement. So you could say, right, on my work experience, I saw the GP had to ring up a patient and tell them that they potentially had cancer. So that's a statement, that's what you've seen in your work experience. It shows you've got work experience. And then you can say what skills you've learned. So communication, breaking bad news, kind of working with the patient, teaching them about their condition, prescribing things. And then you can say, I showed this when. So I showed communication when I was vice captain of the netball team and I coordinated everyone to win our tournament or something like that. You've got to explain when you've shown that skill. So that's a good way to to structure your personal statements, show what skills you've learned and show you reflected on the things you've done, not just tick those boxes. And then you've got interviews. So all things going well, obviously you've got good A-levels, good UCAT, good personal statement. You should be invited to an interview. Now there are 2 styles of interview. There is MMI, multiple mini interview, and then panel. So MMI are usually lots of different stations asking you about medical ethics, NHS values, your work experience, your values as well, and kind of what you think the attributes of a doctor are. And there's probably about 8 to 9 stations. As I said, I haven't done these, so I can't speak from my own personal experience. This is all knowledge I've gained from my podcast. And then a panel interview is, I think it's a lot less universities that use it, but it's more of a kind of like this actually. It's a bigger table, more people interviewing at one time rather than different stations. So here are some 5 rough common interview questions you can get asked, and you can read them. And they're kind of rough things you could get asked about. So as I said, ethics. So you've got to make sure you know the 4 pillars of ethics, autonomy, non-maleficence, all of those kind of things. NHS values. So a good way to learn about this is look up on the NHS website, the GMC, the NICE website, all of these things, so you get a kind of feel for what they're looking for. And so throughout all of this, obviously you've got to do your A-levels. So, and that's a challenge in itself. People doing A-levels without all of this is hard enough. But here are some great resources I found very, very helpful with my A-levels so far. So Save My Exams, it really does save your exams. It's really helped me through the last term. Uplearn and MedicMind. MedicMind's the purple one here. They both do cost money after a certain point, but I have heard they're really, really, really good. And a lot of them have past paper questions, and you can also get tutors on there as well. And then PMT. PMT is physics and maths tutor, and so they have introduced a tutor system now where you can ring up and get an actual tutor to help you through, or they're really, really well known for their past papers, or their practice questions. So you can have all the knowledge, but if you don't know how to apply it to an exam question, then it's kind of pointless. And that really helps you with that one, and has all the mark schemes as well. And then here at the bottom here, we've got good old Sean, and he does free science lessons on YouTube. He is really, really helpful. It's not jazzed up at all. It's just straight information, exactly how you want it. If you just want to know everything you need to know without any extra stuff, it's really helpful. And you might want to slow it down a bit because they do go through it very, very quickly. And so that was all resources for A-levels specifically. So that could be anyone doing science A-levels. But for medicine specifically, obviously my podcast is a great resource. But any of these things from medical students that have been through it before, we've got Medics and Me, really, really great, lovely people on there. Most of the things I've got here, I have interviewed people who are founders or people who work with them, and Scrubbed Up looks absolutely amazing. Medic Mind is very good for mock MMIs, so to practice your interviews, that's really good. They also have biology and chemistry Zoom revision evenings, so that's really, really helpful if you just want a bit of a catch up. Oskeezy, so that's mainly for medical students, but they also have a pre-med easy. That's where I did my mock MMI, really, really helpful, because basically with interviews, they're asking a question, but they don't want you to answer that question. They want you to ask a completely different hidden question. So that was really, really helpful. And then Future Frontlines, a bit more kind of healthcare specific rather than getting into med school. So that will help you with your interviews, because say they bring up a current, for example, nursing strikes or junior doctor strikes, you'll all get that on Future Frontline. So that will help you with your interviews going forward. And so, as I said before, obviously you need your A-levels, which is usually biology and chemistry are usually you need. Most people do maths or physics or something else like psychology, and you usually need AAA or A-star AA. That's usually the offer. But what you can do is you can get a conditional offer. So as you can see from here, but also if none of your family went to university, or if no one in your school went into medicine or university, you can get a conditional offer just to account for your disadvantages. So that's usually BBA or BAA, things like that. Just a few lower grades to account for the fact you haven't had the same opportunities as some of the other people who are applying. So that's really good to look into and see if any of those things apply to you. And so here's a little summary of what I've said. So obviously the whole way through, you've got your A-levels and need to be focusing on those, because you can have such an amazing CV and personal statement, but if you haven't got the A-level subjects, you won't even get to interview, which I've had to realize pretty soon, because obviously with the podcast, it's great to have on a CV, but they won't find out about it unless I've got the right predicted grades. And then uni open days, would really recommend you go to some of these so you can actually speak to the students, which is always really, really helpful, and talk to some of the staff there as well. UCAT test is always in the summer before you apply, so make sure you apply to that, because a lot of these things aren't through the school, you've got to do yourself, so make sure you do as much research on that as you can. And then obviously choose your university and apply via UCAT. So you get, as I said, you get 4 medicine choices, and say you've applied to medicine in Manchester, you can also apply to biomed in Manchester, something that's not specifically medicine. You can do it at the same university you've already applied to, and that's usually in October when you apply, mid-October of the year before you go into med school. Then you've got the BMAT test, kind of October, November. As I said, again, I haven't done this, so I'm not 100% sure on the exact timings. And then hopefully you get offered an interview, and then if your interview goes well, you'll be offered an offer, and then if you meet that offer, so AAA or A-star AA, you'll find out kind of August time after you've sat your A-level exams in May or June. So that's kind of the rough summary. Obviously there's a lot to remember there. Lots of people say applying to medicine is basically another A-level, so do make sure you've got really good time management. And we do discuss this on the podcast. Here are some quotes from the people that have been on my podcast. Here are some great tips. I mean, Oliver, he is actually currently doing biomed at Exeter, so he didn't do as well on his UCAT. So listening to him is great advice. UCAT, really focus on that if that's what you're doing. And obviously focus on getting those A-level grades first. From Mayuri, she didn't actually get in the first time round. She graduate entry. So good advice from her as well. Focus on A-level grades and UCAT. and all of the other quotes as well. Do check out the podcast because you'll get so much great information. That's where I've learned all of this, basically. It's such a great resource to learn so many different things like that. So if you haven't already, do scan the QR code. The Instagram, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify all look like this. So do find that there. Just scan the QR code now. And my biggest tip of advice is do go to open days because it's really helpful and you find out so much information you don't find out from the actual website. So thank you for having me today, Asif, and thank you to Biospiel. It's been great to talk today on the webinar.
Thank you, Imogen. That was a very wonderful session. I really enjoyed seeing you talking, and you have shared a very good information about people who want to make a career and who wants to get into medical school. So let me share my screen about Biospiel, how it can help medical students and researchers, medical professionals, scientists, and researchers to share and collaborate on medical cases, get expert advice and second opinion from expert medical professionals worldwide. If you come to biospiel.com, this is the landing page. So if you and here we also have a medical student ambassador section. So we have a medical student ambassador program. So here medical students can apply to our program, and if they are, the requirements is that they must be enrolled as a full-time medical student and they are available to commit to the program at least 2 hours in a week. Benefits you will get is a one-of-a-kind startup experience, certificate of completion upon successful term, also access to our portal, the new features rolled out, preferred selection if you apply for the core team, and this is 100% remote work. So a very useful tool for medical students. Apply now if you are a medical student. So let me just sign up and show you how it works. So I create a new account. Let's say you are a medical student. Your first name, last name, the email address, password, confirm password, institution name, country, United Kingdom, specialty, subspecialty. Upload your workplace ID, school ID, institute ID, license, profession, registration certificate, or clinical degree certificate. This is for your verification. After you upload it, click on register and follow the steps to create a new account. I already have an account, so I will just log in. So just logged into biospiel.com. You can see this is the home feed. You can see some medical cases being published on the home feed. So if you click on read more, this is the subject of the case study. And in a patient who's punched a hard object, show a comminuted fracture. You can see the radiograph of a hand. It is showing a fracture. So you can also go to your profile and add your information in the profile. This is the profile page of the user. You can include your work experience, your affiliation and memberships, your about section, education. This is being uploaded, but shared with the community decisions, articles, groups, events, followers of the user, people who are following the user. And if I click on plus button here, it says share a case. Here, share a case, share a decision, post an article, create an event, create a group. So I will just share a case. Upload some images. Let's say it's a COVID-19 case. Patient is 20 years old female suffering from COVID-19. We can talk about the case summary. The case is about getting a second opinion on expert advice, or a medical professional wants to collaborate with within the medical community. Case is not a decision. Decision is a judgment made by medical professional in treating a patient. For example, medical professional made a decision that a patient is suffering from COVID-19. This is a COVID-19 is a disease. This is a decision made by doctor. This is not a decision. This is only a case. That they want to collaborate with peers in the medical community, so they're sharing a case, or for educational purpose, for collaboration, or to just get an expert advice or expert opinion. Radiology, specialty, subspecialty, other clinical. I agree and share a case. The case has been sent to moderation team for review. To ensure patient privacy, every case is reviewed before being shared on Biospiel. So I just click on view case. This is a case I just posted. Go to my profile. This case is pending. It is not shared with the community because we scan the case for patient private information. Do not allow patient private information to be posted on our portal due to regulatory reasons. So this case is pending. It's not published yet. After we review the case, it will be published and shared with the community. This is a case. Now we talk about share a decision. The decision and the user interface for share a case and share a decision is the same. Difference is that decision is the judgment made by the profession treating a patient. For example, let's say that this is a brain tumor case. The doctor can say that I made a decision while treating a patient. He can talk about a decision. Specialty, subspecialty, and share a decision. The difference is that if you share a decision, you will get a virtual currency coin. You will get a reward point in the form of virtual currency. We will review the decision. If it's according to our standard, then we will share it with the community. And the doctor will receive a virtual currency coin. It's being reviewed now. Virtual currency coin is showcased on your profile. Here it says 9 coins. If you want to win 1 coin, you must make 1 decision. Coins are like reward points. For example, 1 coin is only 1 decision. Right now, the user has made 9 decisions. 1 is pending. 9 decisions are published. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These all are published. 1 is pending. After it is published, then it will be 10 decisions. And his coin will be 10. After it's published, it will be 10 coins. So now post an article. If you want to post an article, it can be scientific, it can be anything. Articles can be of any genre. It can be anything. It can be related to medical science. It can also be not related not to not it can be anything. So and it can be shared with the community, or it is not it can be shared anytime with the community. For example, if I upload a picture and say talk about anything like my experience in med school, the user can say about anything about this experience in med school and just agree, publish the article. The article will be shared immediately with the community. Will not review it. The user finds that the article contains a patient private information or anything which is not according to our standard, he can report the article with built-in reporting tool. Our team will review it. This article has been published. It is shared with the community, and you can also see in the home feed. So now create an event. User can also create an event, just like Facebook or LinkedIn event. For example, he can upload a picture. And talk about medical school gathering. This is the event name, time zone, Pacific time, US and Canada, 9 p.m. 9:30 p.m. on 23 November. Description. Talk about the speakers. Public event, a private event, public event, online event, offline event, street, and submit. I just created a new event. Now you can see this event is created. And you can write in the event, and also you can invite in the event. This is the event. Now you can also create a group, just like Facebook or LinkedIn group. You can create a group, subspecialty collaboration. Videographers group. Type public group, and it can be public group or private group. So let's say it's a public group. Create the group. This is the group I just created. I can post anything in the group, and I can post some images in the group. You can also invite peers in the group. There is also a chat functionality here. For example, if you go to this user profile, also send a message. This is Biospiel. Thank you, everyone. So if you are, thank you everyone for watching this webinar. If you have any question, you can just ask me. So we will just I will just say goodbye to you all. It was nice having you all. Thank you very much, Imogen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
everyone.
Thank you.